Welcome into the Fantasy Guides podcast. My name is Andrew Toyser, and I am joined today by the owner, the operator of Fantasy Guides at fantasyguides.com, Stephen Rippey, as well as fellow Fantasy Guides contributor and master of the bets. I need to come up with a better intro for Jacob. I got AJ a good one. Stephen, of course, rolls, but we'll work on this, Jacob. We'll get something.
Yeah, we'll workshop it.
There's something better there.
Yeah. We're going to set aside a lot of time to do that at some point.
For sure.
Behind the scenes.
We know that.
Absolutely. Anyway, you're here. We're here because we're going to talk about buys and sells for this week. Y'all ate up the last one we had. It's been our highest viewing videos is these buys and sells because y'all need to know them, and we've been kind of kicking butt with them. Jamar Chase, check. I know that might have seemed like an easy one, but man, did that feel good last night to have. So I think we've been doing really good. We've got another slate for you. Again, each of us will have a buy. Each of us will have a sell. And if you're saying you don't like these, Steven will be putting out a post of more buys and sells for you to dig into later. So let's get right into it. Jacob, who are you buying this week?
My first buy is maybe the best buy because you might not even have to buy him. You might just be able to add him off your waiver wire.
You buy him with Fab.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I would spend most of, if not all of it, on Bucky Irving this week. He's on your waiver wires. He's looked the part, and Rachaad White is simply not. Next opponents are Philly, Atlanta, New Orleans, Baltimore, Atlanta. It's nothing crazy, but he's got the sixth best remaining strength of schedule among all running backs right now. So we have some data we can look at for strength of schedule that kind of helps there, but it's a top 10 schedule rest of the season. He's just the RB35 right now, nothing crazy. But last week, he finally saw the majority of carries, saw 56% of the rushes in that backfield, and he looked good with them. He looked really good with them. And so far on the year, this is awful. White has 31 carries for 66 yards. Bucky has 24 carries for 145 yards. So that's 2.1 a carry versus 6.04 a carry. That is a massive difference in efficiency there. Bucky's shown he can catch the ball. He's shown that he's a better pass blocker. He's far more efficient. He's more explosive. Rachaad White's still dealing with the little hammy injury. I think he is going to continue to take over volume in this offense and emerge as the number one there in what should be a good offense, better than what we saw last week. Todd Bowles came out yesterday and said he's earned more snaps. So everything is just trending positively for a young rookie that I'm excited for him to get more work, more volume, and show what he can do with it because he looks so good right now.
Yeah, no, Jacob, I'm on board with that. Kind of reminds me of what we saw with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Like, it was very split until they realized Gus Edwards was doing terrible. J.K. Dobbins, you have to keep giving him more work. And then we saw in week 3, the touches went from like Gus Edwards leading the charge to J.K. Dobbins going like 18-3. So I could see that similar kind of thing happening in this Tampa backfield because Rachaad White, we've known he's a plotter for a long time. He just didn't have much competition last year. This year, he has some competition. So I like this one, especially because you don't have to trade anything for him. Yeah, you have to probably spend a decent amount, but probably not as much as you might think. Maybe you might have to battle the Rachaad White owner, so you got to keep that in mind. But I don't mind being aggressive on this one because we don't want to say it's going to be the next Kyren Williams situation, but could it be Kyren Williams light situation? Potentially.
You want to talk about comparing him to Kyren Williams? Oh, okay, let's do that right now. The reason you didn't hear more about Bucky Irving going into this season is because he slipped into the 4th round, which genuinely not that late. That's not a terrible round to grab a guy, but he didn't go high enough to grab a ton of attention. Why'd he slip? He was small and not that fast. Remind you of Kyren Williams? I think so. But he's not even that small. He's 5'9", 192. That's a 28.4 BMI. Honestly, that might be bigger than Kyren Williams. Bucky Irving is not that slow. He is not that small. He's really good at pass catching. That's the irony of this all. Rachaad White is actually just a wide receiver playing running back. Bucky Irving had 56 receptions in his last college season. If you don't follow college football that close,
that's insane.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So Bucky Irving, if Rachaad White goes to the wayside, it's not like you need a receiving back. You have Bucky Irving. He's really just that good, and his best thing is his short area burst. It's a great buy. I've been leaning into Bucky Irving every week on the waivers.
Well, and to further that, So he's averaging, what's it on the year, Jacob? What's his?
6.04 per carry, top 5 in the league.
But let's also remember he played against Detroit week 2, and Detroit is stout versus the run.
They're stout in general right now.
Yeah, and he only averaged in that game three yards per carry. So in his other games, he's done much better than that. He's been at basically 7 yards per carry in his other 2 games. Yeah, he's efficient, and he didn't score a touchdown last week.
No, he was really close.
He was very close. So if he had scored that touchdown, I think, and he ends up with 17 fantasy points, he's much more talked about. The fact that he only scored 11, I think that keeps him a little bit lower on the radar.
Yeah, lean into it. He's almost scoring 10 points twice without a touchdown and before his role increases. Standalone value, even if he doesn't take over. Great buy, great option. Let's move on to the next one. Steven, who are you buying this week?
He's not doing terrible by any means, but I'm going with Zay Flowers, who's the wide receiver 24 currently. And again, I've said this on a number of podcasts. He's really passing the eyeball test for me. I just think he looks really good, but some of the numbers back it up as well. So he's got the same number of targets as Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin's having, from a fantasy perspective, a much better season. They got the same number of targets. He just hasn't caught as many. He has 4 fewer targets than Rashee Rice, who's the wide receiver 2 right now. He's got 11 more than Chris Godwin. He's getting targeted a lot. He has a 29% target share. He's got a 96% route participation. They don't even want to use Mark Andrews anymore. Mark Andrews on the season has 8 targets. So they've completely moved away. And even Isaiah Likely, that week 1, that's a long memory. Feels like it happened 2 years ago. Zay Flowers is the wide receiver they want to get the ball to. I think it's not like I have him finishing necessarily as like a top 10 wide receiver option, but I think he looks the part, and I think his floor is probably where he is, and it's probably higher than that. I think he has still top 15 upside, and I think you can get him a little bit cheap right now because he hasn't had a really much of a big game.
A big part of the reason he hasn't had a big game is they haven't needed him to have a big game. He played the Kansas City Chiefs week 1, which that game was just, it was so slow, so low scoring in the first half. There wasn't a lot going on, if we recall back. And it's the freaking Chiefs. They have the best DBs in the league, potentially. They're insane. Then he plays the Raiders, good matchup, blows up. Then he plays Dallas last week, and they had a winning game script from the start. So through 3 weeks, you want to take these small sample sizes and rip them apart, because a couple fluky games takes a guy who could be a top 15 wide receiver and turns him into a borderline wide receiver 2, opening up that gap. Jacob, are you all over Zay Flowers with us?
I am right there with you guys. Next 3 games look real nice too, because Buffalo should be a game script where they're going to have to pass next week. And then it's Cincinnati after that, who we just saw Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin torch. And then it's Washington the week after. So next 3 games are glorious. I love it for Zay Flowers. I'm all in. And like you said, he's just passed the eye test.
Well, and if you watch that game on Sunday, they had a huge lead on Dallas. Now I know Dallas made it interesting at the end there, but he's been at a 90% snap share the first 2 weeks, and then last week, Zay dropped to a 67% snap share. So I think a big part of that, they were trying to drain some clock, slow the game down before Dallas came back, made it kind of more of a game. In more competitive games, like they should have over the next at least 2 games, and potentially the game against Washington. I mean, they just beat Cincinnati, so these next 3 games could be shootout potential. I think he has 3 good weeks in a row.
Lamar threw the ball 41 times week 1, 34 times week 2, and only 15 times last week. They were just running all over him.
Yep.
They want to get pass happy in Baltimore, and I am all for it. Do it and find out what happened. Mark Andrews, where'd you go? Where'd you go, buddy? I know you had that car accident, but you told us we were fine. Is it that? Is Zay Likely even stunk? Oh, Ravens, figure yourself out, but keep throwing the ball to Mr. Zay Flowers. I've got to buy, gentlemen. And I want to get us more running backs. We've been going running back light. So just like Jacob, I kind of tried to focus in on that. Josh Jacobs is an excellent buy candidate. And I think you're going to hear the exact opposite this week, because Josh Jacobs was split in the backfield this week. And that was the concern going into the season, is Matt LaFleur likes a running back by committee. Well, friends, Josh Jacobs wasn't exactly getting a committee in week 2. He saw 32 carries against the Indianapolis Colts, And I think the Green Bay Packers said, maybe we don't kill him. Maybe we only get him 14 carries in a game where, again, they were just up right off the rip. And they said, let's let this Emmanuel Wilson guy take some of the punishment. Josh Jacobs still played over 50% of the snaps. It was closer to 50%. But again, the Packers were just winning the entire dang time. It didn't make sense to run your guy into the ground. Plus, he was dealing with a little bit of an injury. And he's been doing fine with Malik Willis at quarterback. Are we forgetting Mr. Jordan Love is about to return, the prince that was promised in Green Bay, the frozen man ready to come out and make all of our feelings happy and warm inside in Green Bay again? We can finally start their players with confidence. And a big reason his points have been down is Josh Jacobs is a great candidate to catch passes out of the backfield. Week 1 with Jordan Love there, he had a 10% target share. Let's get back to that. That's going to happen with Jordan Love, not with the run-happy Malik Willis. Josh Jacobs and this whole offense is about to explode, even though they felt kind of good with Malik Willis. This isn't their ceiling. Their ceiling is the sky. Gentlemen, Steven, you on board with me?
Yeah, he's RB30 right now, but he ranks 6th in rushing yards. That doesn't seem to equate. He doesn't have a single touchdown. I don't think he'll have to run quite as much when Jordan Love comes back, but I think this offense will be, I say it'll be so much better. It's actually been pretty good the past 2 weeks with Malik Willis, but I think he's going to get some touchdowns. He has 0 right now. He's one of the few backs with as much usage as he has that doesn't have a touchdown. Those touchdowns will come, and we'll see him probably come in chunks. You'll probably see some 3 touchdown games out of Josh Jacobs moving forward, so I'm completely on board.
He is 89% of the carries inside the 5 so far this season.
And he's averaging a good amount, 4.5 yards per carry. So he's looked good. It's just hasn't had a big game yet.
Yep, 3rd in the league in yards or attempts inside the 5. So he just hasn't got in the end zone yet, and that's where your fantasy points come from. He's going to get there. The offense is going to be even better under Jordan Love and more efficient. So I'm not worried about Emmanuel Wilson.
My favorite thing to do, and what I was really trying to do, is go to the touchdowns and find the guys, if you're wanting to find a buy, who haven't scored one yet, because it's going to make their fantasy points look so woeful. If Josh Jacobs had 130 yards last week and also had a touchdown, we'd be talking about him way differently. But excellent buy. There's 2 good running backs for you and a receiver. But now we got to talk about the sells. And Jacob, I think now is time for me to leave the room because I don't think I'm ready to approach this problem. I'm not in the stage of grief where I'm able to accept this. Jacob, who's your sell?
This is a sell if the value is right in your league and a hold if it's not. It is Anthony Richardson. It's not a must sell, but it is a guy that I was worried about coming into the season. He was on our bold predictions episode as I called him out as not finishing inside the top 10, and there was a lot of reasons for that, and all those reasons right now are coming true. So it does not look good. He's below that 60% passing completion mark that I pointed out in that episode. That mark in the last 6 years, only 1 quarterback's finished top 10 under that mark, under 60. He's under 50 right now. So he's under 50% completion percentage right now, not passing the ball well. And he also has 8 turnovers through 3 games.
God, 8?
8.
I knew it was bad, but 8, that's a number I hadn't quite digested yet.
It is a lot. I think everyone saw that throw he had at like the 3-yard line on Sunday. That was it was terrible. There was a great throw that got him all the way down there, and then on the goal line, like they're in a good scoring position, and he just makes just an awful mistake with the ball. So I don't like that. And Andrew and I were talking about this earlier. He's a big Colts fan, so he sees it even more than I do. But
unfortunately,
they are not calling design runs for Anthony Richardson. Why are we not running the ball with this guy? He's not even the one that's getting the attempts inside the goal to go situations that we want to see. It's Jonathan Taylor is, which he's great and he should be, but 7 attempts for JT inside the 10, just 3 for AR. So the rushing upside isn't even coming as true as we wanted it to. He can't pass. The strength of schedule the rest of the season is middle of the pack. It doesn't look great. And it's Pittsburgh this week. I don't think you're going to have a good week this year. I think you have to sit him this coming week if you've got better options. It's probably a streaming week for you if you have him. Quarterback 19 right now. It's not looking good.
Steven, make me feel better about myself, please. Why might we not want to sell Anthony Richardson outright? Because I know you almost had Anthony Richardson as a buy before we started recording. So why might I have some hope? Please tell me.
Well, I don't know. Jacobs, he did a pretty good sales job there. No, I still think QB 19. I think it's going to be hard for him to finish outside of that. But I don't know. Part of me is getting those Justin Fields rookie year vibes. And let's not forget, Anthony Richardson essentially is a rookie. So it's very possible he puts up a Justin Fields rookie season. I still think they're going to start running him more, especially the way the Colts have been playing. I think we do start to see more designed runs. It's only been 3 weeks. He still ranks, let's see, in the league, he still ranks top 6 in rushing attempts. So I think we start to see more of that, especially if he can't throw the ball. I think they do start to design more runs. I don't think they're just going to go, let's just let him keep slinging it. I think they'll probably make it a more simplified offense for him, do more of the stuff that he's good at. Maybe it puts him at more injury risk, but at this point, at QB 19, I'm not selling him. I'm holding on to him. I'm probably trying to buy him if somebody sees him outside of the top 10 at quarterbacks. I get all the reasons Jacob's saying to sell him. And maybe Jacob is right. Maybe he won't on the season finish inside the top 10. But moving forward, I think they probably adjust a little bit. And yeah, I'm not moving him.
I think Jacob brings up a very good point in the regard of it is as bad as it looks. There is no secrets of, oh, he's just missing one of those throws or one of the other. No. It is as bad as it looks. Now, where I have some hope as a Colts fan is I have never seen a man be able to always find the open receiver, but then never hit the open receiver. And it is infuriating how incredibly open these guys are and how incredibly not they're getting the football. To say you should not panic sell, Anthony Richardson looked better last year. Here's some proof. Through some of the weeks he played, again, not all these are complete weeks, but take it for what it's worth. Week 1, he had a 65% completion percentage. Week 2, 60%. Week 4, 44%. But week 5, 75% unlimited snaps. It was not this bad last year. I seriously think Anthony Richardson has the yips. You guys know what I'm talking about in sports, the yips?
I've heard it in what is it? Gymnastics.
He was
I've heard of the
sub 60 last year.
Are you comparing him to
dragging him down? I'm comparing him to, as a Cardinals fan, there's a young man that was supposed to be like the next up and coming guy. This is going to hit like 2 people nichely listening to this. We had a guy named Rick Ankiel who was supposed to be this incredible pitching prospect and was like Cy Young candidate as a rookie. Something flipped. He couldn't throw a strike anymore. And that's how it feels with Anthony Richardson. Another reason for hope is Richardson has not scored a rushing touchdown so far this year. Sorry, take that back. He scored 1. But last year, through his first 3 games, he scored 4. Now, I think 4 is a lot through 3 games, but I think 1's too few through 3 games. So hopefully we see something turn around for AR. But right now, if he keeps performing, to Jacob's point, this is misery, unstartable, Justin Fields kind of stuff.
Well, he is also coming back from an injury. He is still, I'm going to say, a rookie. So he still has some growing to do. So I think it can only be uphill from here.
I think this coming week is going to be a spot where we get asked if you should drop Anthony Richardson.
No.
Which the answer will be no.
No.
The answer will be no, but he is not going to finish inside the top 15 at the quarterback position against Pittsburgh. I don't have any faith in him performing well against that defense. However, the following 3 weeks is Jacksonville, Tennessee, Miami. So if you don't want to sell, hold tight for a couple weeks, find a different streaming option this week. And I think those 3 weeks following should be much better. If they're not, we've got a bigger problem. But I think he still has top 7 value in most leagues, I think. And I would go sell him for that right now if I could.
Here's when you sell him. If you drafted also Jaden Daniels, and then and you have Jaden Daniels, then you can sell Anthony Richardson. Then I will buy into it. So yeah, if you've got a good second quarterback, and don't tell me it's Sam Darnold. If you have a good second quarterback, then I'm more open to selling him.
I'm going to wrap this up in a bow. It's as simple as this. Anthony Richardson right now is playing as poorly as the stats say he is. If you think that you believe in him, that he will suddenly play better, buy him. That is genuinely a buy. If he can get back to last year, he's going to be incredible. If you just think he keeps playing like he is, which is terrible, it is on film horrible, then you should sell him and get rid of him right now. It is up to you, folks. We leave it there. Steven, that last sell is very, very hard. I think we kind of deserve a little bit of a softball here. Who is your sell?
All right, so this one's pretty easy. You're probably not going to get a ton for him. This is as we say, a throw-in piece on a bigger trade. You know, if you're trying to trade away Anthony Richardson, maybe you combine him with this wide receiver, Alan Lazard of the New York Jets, who is currently the wide receiver 15. And one reason I could see Alan Lazard fetching a little more value right now, not only if you're selling him as a wide receiver 15, but he's done it both on primetime games. I think everybody who's watched a Monday night football game or Thursday night football game saw he went off on both those games against two pretty good defenses, actually. Who did they play last week? Who did the Jets play?
New England.
New England on Thursday.
Okay, maybe. Well, not New England quite as much, but San Francisco the previous time. And he's outshined Garrett Wilson, who Garrett Wilson to me is still easily the alpha target earner in that offense. I know it hasn't shown so far through 3 weeks, but I think it will as the season goes on. Lazard's never finished better than wide receiver 34. And again, you're not probably getting top 15 prices for him. That's why I think he's a throw-in piece to a bigger trade. He only has 16 targets on the season. I was just talking about Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers has what did I just say he had? Sorry. He has like 35 targets or something like that. So he's got like 20 more targets than Lazard has. And like I said, you just gotta find the right trade partner, somebody that's hurting at wide receiver, somebody who's got Brandon Ayuk. Let's put it that way. Somebody in your league has Brandon Ayuk
or Tyreek Hill.
Start with Alan Lazard, and then add a small piece if you have to get Brandon Ayuk.
It's again, look at the touchdowns. Alan Lazard is one of like 6-7 guys who have 3 touchdowns receiving, which is leading the NFL. You chase the touchdowns and you go right against it when the utilization says, hey, buddy, you're playing a little over your skis. And my goodness, Alan freaking Lazard is playing over his skis. Aaron Rodgers loves him like a brother. But man, your fantasy lineup will not after a couple more weeks. Jacob, are you grasping on to Alan Lazard?
No, I'm not. I think he's a sell too. I think Mike Williams is getting ramped up a little bit as well. We finally saw him getting some big-time targets, and he was very close to a touchdown or two last game. But it's also a matter of just how much of a gauntlet this is right now that Garrett Wilson's going through. With San Fran week 1 scheming against him, he had L'Jarius Sneed week 2. He had Christian Gonzalez last week. He has Pat Surtain coming this week, and then he's got the Minnesota defense. Yeah, and he's fighting his own sleeves. It's a really rough stretch of, I guess this is kind of a sell low pitch for Garrett Wilson, but regardless, there's better days ahead for Garrett Wilson, and I think that contradicts good days ahead for Alan Lazard. So yeah, I would move off if you can get anything near where his value currently is right now.
I came up with 5 or 6 buys, and yeah, Garrett Wilson was on that list of buys. It's just not going to keep going to Alan Lazard for touchdowns. He had 2 in prime time. He scored all of his touchdowns in primetime games. That is how you get a sell window right there, is playing in primetime.
Maybe you could get somebody like, now I know he had a big game, but maybe like a Jaden Reed type. He might be a little harder because of that primetime game, that first week 1. People probably haven't forgotten that. Yeah. But I still think there's good pieces. Like, actually, let me ask you guys, who would you rather have, Lazard or Shakir? Or are they kind of the same guy?
By a lot.
See, and I would too. Like, that would be a 1-for-1 I would do.
How about Lazard or Tank Dell? Because I think Tank Dell's someone that's got really low value right now.
Yeah, I would do it for Tank Dell.
Also on my buy list.
Yeah.
You could probably, DJ Moore had a decent week, so maybe not DJ Moore. Like a Brian Thomas Jr., straight up.
Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I feel like there's an Amari. Amari just had a big game, so maybe not Amari. But I feel like there's a lot of guys who fit the bill for
this. There's plenty of underperformers out there that you can go after.
Yeah. Few of our sells are like, sell him, get him off your team because he's going to possibly go to nothing. This is one of those. Anthony Richardson isn't panic sell, get rid of him right now. Alan Lazard is get him off your team.
Sorry not to drag this out even more, but where's Quentin Johnston on a get him off your roster scale?
He is not as get him off-ish as Alan Lazard.
I agree.
He's a 28-year-old veteran. But Jacob, what's your opinion there?
Herbert is hurt, so I think his value is lower than what it might have been if he was healthy. But he is the number 1 receiver in that offense.
Unfortunately.
So like, I don't think Quentin Johnston is a must sell. I think he's kind of a hold and prove it, which he just needs to prove it more than most people because of what we've seen in the past. But he's doing it so far. I kind of want to wait and see with him.
And some of these trades, it sounds like no duh, but I get people that comment on posts, and some of the trades I see that go down, I'm shocked at. So I think in the right league, you could get good value for him.
Yeah.
We're speaking to everyone. We're not talking to the people who are playing in these incredibly intensive leagues. That's not the only people we talk to.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do need to talk to the people who are the little sister
work
who
league.
joined their brother's family league, and they need to know this guy who scored 30 points, he probably needs to go.
Yep.
We're here for the people.
Yes.
And this is a discussion we have to have for the people that I don't want to have at all. I was prepared to get spicy with some sells. I'm thinking maybe sell Chris Godwin where he's at. Maybe sell David Montgomery where he's at. Guys, I even have James Cook, who I love, as a possible sell. But this one has to be discussed. Sell the entire Miami Dolphins offense. And it's not a must sell. It's not a panic sell. We're at the point of the season. If your team is 0-3 and you have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, or Devon Achane a little bit less so, you got to sell. You have to get something back in return. Go to our buys list. Go to Steven's buy post. If you can flip Tyreek Hill for Zay Flowers plus Bucky Irving, that might be something you have to do. Let's say you had CMC and Tyreek Hill and he went down. You need a running back buy. This could happen. The team is absolutely miserable. I don't need to even rattle off stats. All I have to tell you is a guy named Skylar Thompson who went to Kansas State and Tim freaking Boyle who went to UConn and was only in the NFL because he's Aaron Rodgers' best buddy, are the quarterbacks for the Miami Dolphins. And they passed for a combined 180 yards in a game where they trailed the entire time. And they have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. We have no signs of this getting better. We do not know when Tua will come back. He hasn't even said he will come back for sure. He's saying he's not thinking about retirement. What if that flips tomorrow? Because he sees a specialist who says you need to retire. He could be back in 3 weeks at the earliest. He could be out till week 10, 15, what have you. If your team is not 3-0 or 2-1, you need to seriously get these guys off your team and get something for them because it's absolute misery. Steven, are you in agreement here?
Yeah, and it's actually not 3 weeks at best. They have a bye week 6. And Jacob was just talking about Ladarius Sneed and Chris Gonzalez. That's who Tyreek Hill will be going up against the next 2 weeks.
Ooh.
So 2 bad matchups for him, then a bye week. They do get Indy and Arizona after that. But like you said, we don't know if Tua will come back. I could literally see this being one of those things where it's week by week and every week it's like, not quite yet. Not quite yet. We still don't know if he comes back, is he going to be? Tua hasn't been amazing through the first 2 weeks. So what Tua are we going to get? I'm just worried about this whole offense. I'm worried about the team losing, just mentally being kind of over it at like the halfway point of the season if they're not winning any games and just not playing as well. So yeah, I think I'm going to try to get out from pretty much every Dolphin if I can.
Yeah. Devon Achane, those first 2 weeks, the RB1 overall hope we had for him, it was there. It was in his grasp, but now he's more of a running back too. And it's not going to be fun. He's still going to potentially have those blow-up weeks because he can break any play loose, and same with Hill and same with Waddle, but you're banking on that from very low volume, and both the receiving group and the running back group have bottom 5 strength of schedules rest of the season, which compared with an unknown quarterback situation is just not a good recipe for success. So it sucks. It really sucks. This is a fantasy goldmine of a team with the talent they have, and it's not going to pan out this year, it looks like.
I blame Mike McDaniels or whoever's doing most of the string pulling in the GM office there. Why didn't they keep Mike White? I'd be not panicking as much if Mike White was still their backup. That's fair. That guy just throwing it a million times when he was with the Jets, and there was some like decent fantasy options. But Skylar Thompson, I'm definitely not on board with as the signal caller.
Go trade for Jameis Winston, dang it.
Like, do it for the fantasy people. Go get a Mike White.
Do it for your team, for crying out loud. Jameis would win games with this roster.
I don't know how old Ryan Fitzpatrick is. But come on.
He's doing Thursday Night Football and Shake Shack commercials naked. He's living his life.
You could bring Tannehill back, though. That's a realistic option.
Yeah. He's out there. Now, here's the only thing. If they did get like a Ryan Tannehill, who I think is probably an upgrade still over Skylar Thompson, then maybe I'm a little more like on the less sell, but still we don't know if any of that stuff's going to happen. I'm still not that excited if they pick someone like him up. But I want to distance myself from this team, unfortunately, because I did like Tyreek Hill still, where he was being drafted this year.
Yeah, I think there's at least 3 or 4 backup quarterbacks out there right now that if they went to Miami, I would completely be back on board with. But there's just no guarantee that any trades happen. Like we just don't have any way of knowing that. There's no way of knowing when Tua is going to come back. It is too unknown, and you're banking on uncertainty for those guys' value to come back up. And I would rather just get out while you can, because like you said, Andrew, if your team's 1-2 or 0-3, you've got to win games now. You got to make the fantasy playoffs to have a chance at winning a fantasy championship. And if that's not what you're going for, I don't think you're playing the right game. So, yeah, it stinks, but it's something that you just got to rip the Band-Aid off.
Before we wrap up, and because we're running long on our short episode here, let me just throw some names out there. I imagine a Tyreek Hill trade ideally is probably Tyreek for a lesser receiver plus something else. Throughout the something else, which receiver would you like to have as like the main piece in return for Hill? I'm gonna throw out some names. Would you be okay? Like we mentioned it, Zay Flowers. Would that be one you would be willing to move Hill for? Jacob?
Yeah.
Steven?
Yeah, I would. I think you could get Tyreek plus for Zay Flowers, or I might do a Jalen Waddle plus, Alan Lazard to get Zay Flowers, something like that.
Would you be okay if Drake London was the main receiver coming back in a Tyreek Hill trade?
There better be a real good +1 there, but yeah, I'd be okay with it.
I'm going to make it grosser. Would you take Jameson Williams back
No.
in a Tyreek plus something trade?
I don't think I'd go as far as Jameson.
Would you take Jameson Williams, Jacob?
I think Jameson Williams is pretty grossly underrated right now, but that's a bit of a stretch. You should be able to get a really good +1 in that situation.
Amari Cooper plus something. Steven?
Amari hadn't looked good either. I probably wouldn't go that far.
No,
Okay.
it's got to be a good +1 again.
Okay, so we're kind of dwindling down there. It's like those wide receiver twos that haven't been phenomenal so far, but you're not going way down.
I mean,
You can probably get Chris Godwin for him straight up, and I would do that today.
Yes.
Yeah, I would probably do that as well. It's funny, you just mentioned Zay Flowers. They have essentially the exact same fantasy points. So if you could get Zay Flowers, and it would have to be a good +1, though, because Tyreek Hill will still have some good games here. He will still have some games. So that, I don't know, the more I'm thinking about it, I wonder if that could be too far. He's still Tyreek Hill.
Again, if you're 1-2 or you're 0-3 and you've got to win a couple of games, these are the decisions you'll have to be making. But I'm going to cut us off right there because this is supposed to be our short pod. So there's our buys and sells. We've got a bunch more we'll put out on an Instagram post. Go check it out. Doesn't going to have as much explanation, but if you need some names to potentially trade Tyreek, Zay Flowers, Josh Jacobs, any of these guys we mentioned today, go check that out. Thank you for tuning into the Fantasy Guides podcast. Remember, you can hear us Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, anywhere you can get a podcast, you can hear us. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. You guys have been incredible. Thank you so much for the reception, especially on these videos. We appreciate it so much. Get a weekly season guide if you want more stats and info to take in and make these for yourself. You get it for the less than the price of a large pizza. Follow us on Instagram, X, TikTok, everywhere at Fantasy Guides. I'm Andrew Toysher. That's Stephen Rippey. That's Jacob Rhodes. Say goodbye to the friends at home.
Peace.
Good luck this week, guys.